So I think that there is such a runway for a diverse population within financial services, not just as administrative staff, not just as paraplanners, not just as support folks, but as advisors and firm owners and RIA owners and all of these different components. And I think a lot of that starts with representation for having folks that look like me, that look a little bit different, that run their practice a little bit different. I think it's important to have those folks out there and say, hey, this is possible for you too. It's not easy, but it's absolutely possible. So the DE and I work, I think, is really important work. I think it's also a bit of an uphill battle sometimes.
Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, a broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Houston First Financial Group are not affiliated.
Welcome to Money Matters with Chris Hensley, where we spotlight financial literacy issues in the Houston community and beyond. And now your host, Chris Hensley.
Welcome to Money Matters, where we unlock the door to financial success. Today, we're joined by Melissa Reaktenwalt, an industry veteran with 18 years of experience. She's here to share invaluable insights to elevate your financial journey. We'll explore Melissa's dynamic entry into the industry, her evolution into a renowned public speaker, and how she balances educating clients while managing their investments. She'll reveal her insights into the credit union bank channel versus the independent channel for advisors, providing a clear roadmap for navigating these paths. Melissa will also guide us through values-based wealth management, explaining how ESG and SRI principles influence her practice. We'll uncover her money mantra, offering a blueprint for financial success, and delve into how diversity and inclusion are shaping the industry. This episode is packed with actionable insights from Melissa's journey, so stay tuned to the end for tips that will leave you empowered and ready to take charge of your financial future. Melissa, welcome so much to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Now, for Melissa, I was lucky enough to meet you at Future Proof in real life, and this was an industry event, and we were networking, and we sat down and we had a really good conversation together. But for listeners who are just now learning about you, can you share a little bit about yourself so that we can get to know you better?
Absolutely. So yes, in that brief 15 minutes that we chatted, I gave you the short version, and I'll do the same here. But yes, Melissa Reaktenwalt, I have had quite a meandering career in financial services, but a really good one. That led me to starting my own firm, EV Financial, in 2018 as a solo practice, and we've grown and grown and grown from that point. But as you mentioned, I've got just about 18 years in the industry and moving again from firm to firm. I'm trying to find that right fit. So it's been an interesting journey for sure within the financial services world, but happy to be here and thriving.
I love it. I love it. And I'm smiling here because when we talked, I'm about 20 years or so, like maybe a couple extra years there for extra credit, but into my career as well. So we, a lot of things were very similar. And yet, some of the growth and evolution that you went through, a little bit different as well. How has your approach to wealth management evolved over, nearly 2 decades in this field? And what key lessons have you learned along the way?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I have had the opportunity and advantage and maybe fortune of being in the room with lots of different types of financial advisors and financial planners over the years, and have worked with a lot of them either as associate advisors or even business partners. And so I've seen a lot of different sides of the industry and the business. And that kind of broad depth of experience there, I think, has given me a really unique vision and perspective on the wealth management industry as a whole, but also kind of how I work with clients. And I've tried really hard to differentiate myself because, of course, that's what everyone tells you to do in the financial services industry. but I wanted to be very genuine in that. So I took a lot of those different experiences and a lot of those different perspectives from other advisors that I've worked with over the years to kind of help craft my vision for a firm and what I did not want and what I absolutely did want. And that plays into how I work with clients on the wealth management side and the financial planning side.
I love it. I love it. Let's talk. I'm going to pivot just a little bit here, and because
Mhm.
one of the other things that we connected on was public speaking.
Yeah.
In addition to having your own practice and your own wealth management and financial planning company, you also do a lot of public speaking. Your public speaking journey has been a prominent aspect of your career. How did you get started, and what challenges or milestones have shaped your journey as a speaker?
Yeah, absolutely. It's also such a great question. So I think a lot of advisors think that when I say I'm a public speaker, and lots of other people think that I'm doing educational workshops and those types of things for clients. I certainly do that. That is a big part of our community education that we do, and reaching clients and getting them. But on the public speaking side of the line, it started in the financial services realm, in that I submitted a bid for a speaker at a women's conference talking about kind of financial basics for women business owners, and did not get that. So they wrote back and said, "Hey, thanks so much for for that pitch. We love it. We're going to instead ask you to be a moderator, not a panelist, but a moderator for a panel at this event, because we think that's, based on your experience, that makes sense." I had to check my email for just a moment, not immediately say, absolutely not, I'm not going to do that. But that was my first step into, I graciously accepted. And that was my first step into being on a relatively big stage. That was a panel on women in business, and entrepreneurship and that journey. Um, and that sort of ballooned into a couple of other events and a couple of other invites, sitting on a couple of other panels as a panelist, and then doing a couple of keynotes over the years. So it's just kind of ballooned from sort of that first ego crushing moment. But all uphill from here. But it has been a really big part of my career. And it's funny to me, I am an extreme introvert, I think in a lot of cases. And so this career, I'm a little bit of an anomaly there, but also as a public speaker, I think is a little bit different. So I bring a little bit of a different energy there. So it's been a really big part of my journey in financial services and also expanding out to that kind of business owner community as well.
I love it. I love it. So what I'm hearing is saying yes. Initially when they
Mhm.
told you, "Hey, you're going to be a moderator,"
Right.
it's like, well, that's not what I pitched you on. But that
Yeah.
opened up that big stage that you're now doing lots of public speaking, and you're doing a lot of things that you didn't quite see yourself doing at the beginning of that
Right.
journey. You mentioned that you're a core introvert, but you're also able to check the box and get in front of a group, and it's I would say it's even a different skill set or energy level there, and that's fantastic to see that, to share that with other people here. I want to revisit what we mentioned a little bit in the intro. There was the bank channel, because before I was a financial advisor, I worked in the bank channel as well, and
Yeah.
so you have this background where you came from the credit union first and then into the independent channel. What advice do you have for someone considering each of these different paths?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is. I started very candidly. I started on the credit union side of the line in their sort of brokerage and investment arm, as an assistant to a financial planner. And that was because that was the first job that was offered to me. At a
Yeah, yeah.
very, very fresh 20-year-old. And I took it because that's what you need to do to pay your bills. So took that and worked for her for a couple of years, and really fell in love with the career. I will say it was such a soft start. It was not a hard launch into this business. It was a very soft starting point because there's a very nice office in a branch location, and members of the credit union would just be walked over from the teller, or from the manager or the loan officer to say, "Hi, you might want to talk to the other advisor at that point." about so and so for your IRA and these types of things. So it was very much there is no prospecting, there is no growth path that we're looking at. You come in, you receive a paycheck, and you service the clients that are in front of you. When I transitioned to taking over her role, when she left the credit union system, I was very quickly licensed and very quickly in charge of 3 different branch locations. And so that
Wow.
was an eye opener, right? To say, okay, I can do this. Absolutely. I love this work. And there has to be a better way to do that. I let that sit and kind of simmer for some time because, again, I was in a very soft position and a very comfortable one that I know not a lot of people coming into the industry are in initially. Um, but I did then take the leap and went to kind of a semi independent firm and then went independent from there. So, and I talk about this a lot in my public speaking, my kind of business owner journey. It started with get the foundation that you need and want, and then build from that point. That is a very conservative way to do it, but it worked really well for me. I think that if you feel like there is that draw or that desire to do something better, to do something different. You have an expanded option of things to be able to do for your clients on the wealth management side, on the financial planning side. Looking at that either semi independent or independent channel is really a great way to go. But you have to be prepared for the islands that it can then sometimes put you on. That's the other side of the line. Very cushy, very soft on one side, not harsh, but different and sometimes more challenging on the other side.
I love it. I love it. So if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right?
Exactly.
um,
Right.
you talked about these islands that you can end up on, but you also talked about having that foundation first and then building from there as a business owner. You talked about the soft start and the idea of when you're in the bank channel, these relationships are being handed to by
Yeah.
tellers and branch managers. So you're able to still do the stuff that you think of as a financial advisor, but the way that it's coming to you looks a little different. And then fast forward
Right.
to now where you're completely independent and you're having to wear your marketing hat and your client acquisition and your financial planning hat there. So thank you for sharing that, because I think for people who might be coming out of the bank channel or credit union channel to hear that, that's very helpful for them. Let's talk a little bit about diversity in the industry. I'm 50. I just turned 50. I've been in the industry for 20 years, and boy,
Mhm.
things have changed. You
Right.
know, over the past, it's the tail end of the 80s and the early 90s there. What do you see as the current state of diversity in the financial industry? And what steps can be taken to encourage greater inclusion across all levels?
Mhm. I think that it is a very important topic. I think that a lot of folks view it as a hot topic and not necessarily a very important topic. But as being one of those people, so my previous associate of mine used to call me a triple threat. Young Black woman in this industry is somewhat coveted, but also very much an outlier. So that's been my experience since starting 18 or so years ago. And somewhat unfortunately, that hasn't shifted a whole lot over the years. I will say that there is a lot of talk and a lot of foundation for bringing in some diversity, equity, and inclusion topics. I sat on a advisory council for a DE&I group for a couple of years. We did some really good work there, but a lot of it was foundational. So I feel like in financial services, we are behind the curve, not terribly behind other industries, but certainly behind the curve in making some moves there and making some progress. But I do think that it is on the docket. I think that a lot of people are starting to talk about it and talk about it in a meaningful and more impactful way these days, which is refreshing to see. um, so I think that there is such a runway for a diverse population within financial services, not just as administrative staff, not just as paraplanners, not just as support folks, but as advisors and firm owners and RIA owners and all of these different components. And I think a lot of that starts with representation, for having folks that look like me, that look a little bit different, that run their practice a little bit different. I think it's important to have those folks out there and say, hey, this is possible for you too. It's not easy, but it's absolutely possible. So the DE&I work, I think, is really important work. I think it's also a bit of an uphill battle sometimes.
100% agree. I mean, we're further along than we were 20 years ago when it
Yeah.
was all white dudes. But now we're, I want to say a little bit further down the road, to be, have different politics. It's almost like being a unicorn back then. so, so,
Right.
so, so I'm with you here. So this is a good leadway into really kind of how you built your practice, because one of the things that you've incorporated that you're passionate about is ESG and SRI, and really values-based wealth management. How do you incorporate ESG and SRI principles into your wealth management practice? And how do these values resonate with clients? And I'm going to pause myself there, and I'm going to have to say, you might have to explain to listeners what ESG and SRI are. So they may not know the
Absolutely.
acronym. So
I appreciate the opportunity to do that. And I will say that ESG and SRI, which is environmental, social, and governance issues within your investment portfolio. SRI stands for socially responsible investing. So depending on who you're talking to, they may be interchangeable, they may not be. But the gist is that these are values-based investment strategies. So we're looking at kind of your core values as a human, not necessarily your investment philosophy, although that comes into play too, but looking at some of those core values, the issues that you find important, investing more in line with those values. So I started my firm when I went solo. I started my firm on the basis of education first. So I wanted to be very much a community resource. This is where some of the public speaking and some of that workshop kind of environment came from. But I wanted it to be an education first firm. And it's that. And that is such a beautiful thing to me. And when I started this firm almost 6 years ago, I wasn't really into the ESG or the SRI side of the line. I thought, like a lot of other advisors thought, that it was a bit of a fad and a bit of a phase and maybe not something that was truly going to have an impact. But the more that I did my due diligence, the more that I did my research on some of these things and found other advisors who were doing very similar, really impactful work and had the metrics to actually, solidify that stuff. I think it was really eye-opening to me to say, man, this can be a component of that financial education piece as well. It's not just about stocks and bonds and mutual funds and index funds. Like it is, look at all of these things that you can do with your money. So it's something that we incorporate into our practice. It is not a requirement for clients to invest that way if they do not want to or don't have a penchant for that. But it is something that we bring up and are forward with because it's something that's important to me. It's something that's important to the rest of my staff. And if it's important to clients, we want to be able to offer that when it's available.
I know your firm is called EV,
Mhm.
and the E is for education. So we've talked a little bit about that. Can you dive just a little bit deeper as to where that lies in your practice? How important is education to you, and where does that fit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually I fell in love with this career because of some of my upbringing. So I didn't have a lot of that financial literacy and education in my, coming up. It just wasn't there. And I remember feeling very strongly about like, I can educate myself out of this situation. I can get out of this tiny little Midwest town. Nothing wrong, tiny little Midwest town. But my little Midwest town, I needed to get out of. Well, what was I going to do to get out of this tiny little town? So education was always a very big part of that for me. I had no idea that the financial education piece was going to become essentially my entire livelihood and my entire career, but it flows so seamlessly together. But on the side of the line for EV, for that education first firm, that education focused firm, um, it was that desire to be accessible to folks, to not always come in just with a hard sell of we're an asset management firm and we do wealth management and this and this and this on the investment side. Um, yes, we do those things. but also we want you to understand what you're doing with your money and what that means and why we're doing these different things. So I think that education piece is not only crucial for clients, but it's also a really nice relationship sort of, a stronghold for that relationship for us. So that's where we started.
I love it. I love it. We are bumping towards, got about 8 minutes left here. So you talk about something called your personal money mantra. How does that
Yeah.
shape your professional approach to wealth management and advising clients?
Yeah. Thank you for that. My personal money mantra is earn all you can, save all you can, give all you can. And it actually came from my CSRIC, which is the Chartered Socially Responsible Investment Counselor designation. It started from that. I think my initial money mantra was make what you can, and do a good job at that. And that was the end. But practicing in the earn all you can, save all you can, give all you can. That's something that's very important to me. And I think comes through to all of my clients. Whether that is their same money mantra or that's where their mind is as well, absolutely fine. And we'll still talk to you and we'll still do the work. But I think that just putting it out there to say, these are the basics, right? How do we make sure that we are doing each of these things in a smart and efficient way? And that's going to get you to where you want to be in your financial life. So it's really just that, just living that on a day-to-day basis and also imparting that into my clients.
I love it. I love it. So earn all you can, save all you can, give all you can.
Yeah.
Love it. What a great money mantra there. Let's talk about industry trends because you've been in the industry as long as I have. You've seen quite a bit of stuff there. In your experience, how has the financial industry changed over the past 18 years, particularly regarding sustainable investing and client priorities?
Mhm. I think that the focus on a more transparent financial services industry has been a focus and has been a priority for the powers that be behind the scenes, which I think is good. So I am not an advocate for over regulation or over disclosure, but I do appreciate that sort of spirit of transparency there. I think that has been the biggest change is really the regulatory space. But I think that's also then created a shift in where advisors are moving towards. It's away from that sort of safe or softer cushion and more into the independent space and more into the RIA and sort of fee only space. I think it's pushing advisors more that way because of all of these sort of extra parameters that are put on advisors. I'm not saying that's good or bad, but I am saying it certainly happening and certainly something that I'm seeing. And I think back to our other point about, DE&I initiatives and things like that within the industry, I think that that has been um, a notable shift again for that conversation. It's been coming up a lot more. It's much more frequent. And I think ultimately it will be much more impactful. Um, and I think the last point on that and kind of shifting trends and how that's impacted my view in this position as a firm owner, I think is really how am I going to best serve my clients for their priorities for making sure that their sort of whole person is taken care of on the financial side of the line. That's really been our goal as a firm to make sure that we're doing that. And we've just consistently tried to evolve as our clients are evolving, as regulation and oversight is evolving, all of that stuff. It's hard to do and it's a lot to manage, but it is certainly something that as long as we're putting the client needs first and creating that space for that whole person and whole wellness for your financial life, I think that's where we want to be.
I love it. I love it. I'm here in Houston, so think Stanford, think Enron. This is around the
Yeah.
time I got started. So we're, anything that we do as either self-regulating or compliance and our fiduciary responsibility, it's helping move us away. So what the term you use, transparency, I think that is huge. That's helping us, get to where we want to be as an industry. Well, fantastic. We're right here at the end of the show. I'd like to ask you for listeners who'd like to find out more about you, where can they find out more about you?
Sure. Two very easy places on LinkedIn. I'm Melissa Reaktenwalt. I'm the only one, so relatively easy to find. And then on our website, edfinancial.com, it's got a great overview of all of my stuff and who I am and what I'm out and about doing. So two great resources there.
I love it. And Melissa, in the last few minutes that we have here, what have I forgot to ask you that you'd love to share with listeners today?
I think we covered most of the ground. I don't think that there's anything else that, we need to add in there, but this was a great conversation. I'm really happy to have been here.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Melissa, have a great rest of the day there.
Thanks, you too.